hearing there's another change on the offensive line due to an injury. How do you count?
Well, I'm not a doctor, so I haven't really heard any final prognosis or anything like that. All I know is he's got a foot injury, and we'll see if he practices today. I haven't heard if he's going to be able to go today or not.
What kind of if he can't play? I mean, how well has he been playing, and what kind of a blow would that be?
Yeah, well, he's been playing really well. Obviously, he's one of the best guards in the NFL, in my opinion, and so you lose that type of guy, he's tough to replace. But depending on when Cam can come back, I think we'll be in good position if Joel can't play, because we've got John and Alvin who've both started at guard this year, and I'm sure they could move one of those guys over.
Joe, how many injuries are too many injuries?
Well, that's a good question. I have no idea. You obviously don't want any injuries, but you understand that they're part of the game, and that's why it's important to build your depth on any team. And a lot of times how far you make it during the season, as far as do you make the playoffs and how far you go in the playoffs, is determined by how quality your depth is, because in the NFL it's not a matter of if injuries are going to happen, it's when, and it's can the next man step up and perform nearly as well as his starter.
You ever have to look up to remember who your quarterback is?
It's happened before. There was a game several years ago where the quarterback came in and I didn't know his name because he'd only been there a couple days. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But luckily I knew Charlie from last week since he'd been there for a while. And I don't know who the quarterback's going to be this week, but certainly we've got a couple guys that have been around for a little while. So that's encouraging that at least I'll know their name.
Who was that guy? Did you get his name?
Yeah, it was Josh Johnson, actually, I believe. Only had a couple plays with him, but he'd only been there for, I want to say, like 36 hours or something like that. It was not a long period before he had to go in the game.
Is he the guy you introduced yourself to?
That was Mr. Alex Mack's favorite NFL story. Is I had introduced myself to him. It was like, third long in the red zone in Pittsburgh.
And you said?
I just said, I'm Joe Thomas. I'm your left tackle. Nice to meet you.
Joe, you've obviously been through a lot, and seen this organization and team go through a lot during seasons. You're one of the leaders of a fairly young team here. You've always shown that mental toughness to deal with adversity. How do you impart that with a lot of these young kids that have come from winning programs that maybe haven't dealt with much adversity in their careers?
Well, I think part of it's how you approach it. It's kind of a do as I do, watch me type approach, where you're going to be faced with adversity no matter how good you are. And if you just treat it as if it's just part of the job and it's next man up, and you don't make too big of a deal about it, I think that's the best way to handle it. And I think when young guys see that, they understand that the job that we have to get done doesn't change no matter who's in there. So the expectations don't change either.
Joe, how with the roster as young as it is, how important is for these guys to get a win to kind of build some of that confidence so it's not loss after loss after loss?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to get a win because you don't want the losses to ever snowball. In the NFL, you can have wins or losses kind of snowball, and momentum, whether it's a real tangible thing or not, is something that seems to happen in the NFL, and it's important to stop the bleeding. We're 0-5 right now. That's who we are. We own it, and we want to try to get a win on Sunday so we can try to get 2 wins in a row and then kind of turn the season around.
Have you seen anybody get discouraged by the 0-5 start?
I haven't. I think Hugh does an amazing job of kind of setting the energy and the mood for the day in the morning, and he's a very positive, high energy, emotional coach. And I think that really plays well to being in the situation that we're in right now, because we're 0-5, but he comes in on Wednesday, he gives us exactly what he expects from us in a positive, exciting, upbeat manner, and I think kind of sets the energy for the whole day and for the whole week.
Joe, what can you pinpoint went wrong with the running game, and how
back on track?
Well, I think first and foremost, you got to give the Patriots credit. They had a really good plan for us. They had a really good idea of how they wanted to shut down the run game. And, the adjustments that we needed to make to handle it, we weren't able to make quick enough, and we weren't able to execute those until it was too late. Losing your quarterback earlier in the game hurt us. Kind of got a little bit more one-dimensional than you want to be, and we weren't able to make the adjustments that we needed to. So, but that one's over. Can't do anything about that anymore, and we'll have a good game plan going forward for this week, and it'll be all about trying to get back to the basics and executing what we need to have a successful week this week.
Are you going into the week expecting Cody to be the guy on Sunday?
I really haven't talked to the trainers about if he's the guy. I guess we'll kind of find out a little bit more today on how ready he is to be the guy. If he can go out there and throw and play, I would expect he'd probably be the guy. But that's always the doctor's decision, and all you can really go off of is years of experience. If the guy's out there practicing, he's probably going to play. If he's not out there and somebody else is in there, you probably say, well, I guess the doctors are probably going to hold him out. So,
has he shown you what you need to see out of him from the 3 starts he's had?
he's been great. I mean, for a rookie and for a guy that hasn't played at all, to be able to go out and execute a full game plan like he has been is impressive. I'm sure there's things he would say he wants to work on, but from our standpoint, he plays like a veteran quarterback, and that's all we can expect and all we can ask out of our quarterback is just give us a chance to win.
You tell us no one's discouraged. How do you personally not get discouraged? Man, this is 9 straight years.
They pay me to do a job, and my job is to not be discouraged and to do as well as I possibly can and to do everything I can to help my team win no matter what and against any odds or adversity. And that's kind of the way I've programmed my brain. And so at this point, I've been doing it a while, so it's pretty easy to just focus on my job and stay positive and optimistic and look forward to getting a win tomorrow and turning everything around. Or on Sunday, excuse me.
Is there a difference between what you describe, your own focus and energy just on your job versus used to a situation or used to losing or used to guys getting, the quarterback carousel? Or what's the difference and distinction between those two things?
Oh, I don't know. I guess it's probably somebody else's perspective on it. It's one of those intangible things that people like to talk about, kind of buzzword things like camaraderie that not sure it really exists, but it's something that you can talk about and people can argue about, and it makes for good chatter on talk radio and in the locker room and at home. So I kind of believe that football just kind of comes down to technique and X's and O's and executing your job. And I respect Belichick a lot because that's kind of what he's made and preached. He's made his program out to be. I mean, it's not about intangible, fluffy things. I mean, it's like you do your job, and if you trust that the man's doing his job next to you, you're going to be really good. And just focus on what you can control. And one thing I heard that was interesting last week was the main thing is keeping the main thing the main thing. And now, Daryl, I see your head rolling on the floor. I'm going to pick it back up right now. But basically, that just means what's my main thing? It's doing my job. And if I can focus on that, and that's what I control, then it's easy to stay positive and optimistic in the face of adversity.
Do you ever take a step back, though, and kind of wonder, when are we going to get a break? When is something going to go our way?
Oh, I don't. I think that's the benefit of playing a season where you have 16 games and every day is kind of packed from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. You don't have a whole lot of time to reflect. And as soon as you get home, all you have time to do is hug your kids and play with them, and you're not really thinking about football anymore. So I think it's the benefit of what we do. If we were college kids or if this was a part-time job, we'd have all day to sit around and play the what-if game that fans like to do. But I think that can be distracting from keeping the main thing the main thing. Do my job.
Joe, this might be related to Daryl's question a little bit, but Hugh has said that, you know, in trying to change the culture, he doesn't want all these young guys, because there's so many of them, to become used to losing, become accustomed to losing. How do you help
Yeah.
carry that mission
Yeah.
forward when you guys have a game?
Well, I think the biggest part of that is you set your expectation in training camp. This is what we expect out of every position, and you don't waver from those expectations just because you're 0-5. You don't say, well, we haven't done it well enough yet, so that's okay. So we're not going to coach you up on that anymore. We're not going to demand that you do it exactly this way. We're not going to demand that your route's 11.5 yards. You can take it 11 or 12. It's not that important because we're not where we thought we would be. But I think from Hugh's standpoint, him and his coaches do a great job of letting you understand that the details that we demanded in training camp are the same details we're going to demand in week 6, no matter what we're facing. And it's going to be the same details we demand in week 15 and 16. And that's how you let people understand that the losing's not okay, and we're not going to slip just because we've lost a few games. We're still going to expect to go into every game and win.